Hello, welcome to My Life in Pixels. It's fabulous and wonderful to be back, and apologies as usual for being a bit tardy with the episodes. But I promise you this is a bumper edition, so hopefully it will make up for the lost time. Now, the reason this episode is considerably late in coming out is that I've been meaning to do this interview for a long time, and then I got asked to desk host the first couple of days, i.e. the group stages of ESL NY New York. I've never done an ESL 1 Counter-Strike event before, and I was so excited and I couldn't turn it down. And the reason I actually did it was because my friend James, who was meant to be hosting it, unfortunately had a family emergency. So really I was just filling in, and it was a fantastic experience. Obviously I feel conflicted about celebrating that moment because I was only there because of someone's misfortune, but I did really enjoy it, and I only had a day to prep, so it was kind of crazy. But I was very grateful to Maniac, Thorin and Pimp, especially for looking after me on the analyst desk. All three of them were super professional and really helpful. After ESL 1 New York, I headed off to Dreamhack Malmo, where I was doing interviews, stage hosting, and recording some media day kind of content, which they have now called Fun with Frankie, which is... I'm not complaining. I mean, it's such a joy to have a tournament organizer believe in you to the extent, well, they'll name a feature after you. And I got to hold a tarantula and a snake and make hookla boredom. I can't pronounce them. I'm so sorry to anyone who is Swedish or Danish listening to this. But basically these sort of chocolate balls with oats that I made with Flusher, who's recently returned to Fnatic, to a very classic lineup, and they ended up winning the entire event. Hashtag spoilers. But yeah, it was just a great event. I love working with Dreamhack. I think sometimes because I am on screen, you can get horribly insecure in this industry. I think it's the same for any industry where you have people on screen. Unfortunately, we all do have our little inner turmoils and crises of confidence and things like this. But Dreamhack have always just been there for me since I've started working for them. And they always forthcoming with encouragement, I would say. Because I should be able to do my job without too much praise. But I realised when I was in an office, I'd always be a bit of a cheerleader, especially when I was managing a team. But when you're a freelancer, you don't necessarily have that. You don't have someone telling you you're on the right track. And Dreamhack's fabulous for telling you that you're doing what they are looking for. And I have to say the same for Sean Clark and Carmack at ESL as well. They give me such valuable feedback that's improved the way I do my job, and therefore has enhanced my career and given me future opportunities. So if there's one thing you take away from this podcast, please don't be afraid to tell the people you work with that you like them. I'm not saying tell me that you like me. I'm saying tell the people that you see every day. If they've done something great, let them know, even if it's something small. I just think the more kind we can be to each other, the happier we'll be, and the more naturally that will come to us. Talking of kind people, that segues neatly into my guest this week, Niels-Christian, aka NaToSaphiX, who is an absolute diamond of a person and a fantastic Counter-Strike player as well. I met him for the first time at Star Series 6 last year, which was my first ever interviews event for Counter-Strike. And in fact, my first ever interview role in CS. And he was playing for Sprout at the time. Then he went on to play for Heroic. So last time I interviewed him was at Intel Extreme Masters Chicago. He has sadly departed Heroic, and we talk about that in the podcast. We also talk about the usual My Life in Pixels themes, like the first games he played. And we talk a lot about how he actually became a professional Counter-Strike player, because Nato actually started out making content as opposed to being the centre of that content, if that makes sense. So I thought it was a really interesting story of how a pro player went around a different path to get there. But I know I should let you listen to that because it's been going on for long enough. So I will talk to you guys on the other side of the interview. It is a long one, but do stick with it because you'll learn so much. So thank you so much to NaToSaphiX for talking to me. And here's the podcast. And as I already mentioned, we get into the thing by starting off talking about the first games he played. The first thing I want to ask you, thank you for joining me, first of all, but I want to ask what the first game you played was. Was it on the PC or was it on a console? Because you're a bit younger than me, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually not entirely sure. I know my parents told the story many times that I was like playing car racing games even when I was like 2. So I think maybe like Gran Turismo or something like that. I think that could actually be it. But I'm not entirely sure on the game, just the age.
So you were playing on a PlayStation 1 then, if it was GT?
Yeah, I feel like I was playing on a PC actually. I don't think I had a console, and my dad didn't have one either. So maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. At least I was playing car racing games when I was younger. Pretty sure it was on PC, because we didn't have any like.
Yeah.
I got a PlayStation maybe a few years later.
Okay, so you went PC for life. It's interesting that you started out on racing games, but then again, you mentioned you were 2 years old, right? So
Yeah.
actually, it makes sense. It sounds like it's reasonable parenting. But was your dad a gamer when you were born?
No, he didn't really game when I was born, but he was playing games like before that. He worked in a place called Hi-Fi Klubben, so he was like working a lot with, speakers and just hi-fi. And within that, obviously, typically people who are interested in speakers and just electronics in general also like playing games, or at least at that time, I guess it wasn't so normal to play games as it is now. And so if you already had an interest in electronics, probably you also had some sort of an interest in games. That's at least my reasoning. And he had some friends where they would play games, but I think he didn't really play any games when he got my sister and I. So I was on my own, kind of.
Oh, and you have a sister. Is she older or younger?
She is older, yeah. She is 26.
Also
so
a gamer?
3 years older than me. Oh. No, not at all.
Oh, okay, so
only some games, like maybe we've been playing like Little Big Planet together, if you know that.
Yes.
And like Rayman games and stuff like that. So yeah.
So apart from car games, then what games initially took your fancy when you started out playing?
Well, I played just any kind of game. I also actually played a lot of fighting games, or at least like I remember Tekken 3 might have been my favorite game. I remember, playing through that, unlocking that dragon that could fart. That was like, the peak of my, I don't know, 8-year-old self. But I also remember like this story. I don't think I've actually ever shared it, but when I was pretty late to start like bicycling, I guess, because my parents had like a big bike where it was like it's one of those bikes where there's like a place where you can store stuff in the front, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure what it's called.
Like a little front wagon thing.
Yeah, but a pretty big one actually. So the way we did it was we had like 15 minutes to school, and so me and my sister would sit in that big front thing, and then my parents would drive us to school. Then I think when I was 7 or 8 or something, I was learning to bike. I had for the longest time said I couldn't bike, but then one day my parents said maybe you should learn, and then I just said, yeah, I can do it. And then I just went out and did it. And then they said that if I rode to school for 2 weeks in a row, then they would gift me a new game. And I remember I bought Tekken 4, which wasn't as good as the third one, but that was the one I picked. Oh. So yeah, that was one of life's big accomplishments for sure.
That is, I guess, your early years. But how did you move into FPS titles? I'm guessing Counter-Strike wasn't your first, but maybe I'm wrong.
You are actually wrong. It was actually my first.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I was like maybe 8, 7, something like that, I started playing like a ton of RuneScape, and then I started afterwards playing a ton of World of Warcraft, and that was basically all I played. Then when I was like 11, 12 years old, like a guy at my school just brought Counter-Strike, and I had always like known Counter-Strike was a shooter, and my parents wouldn't allow me to get GTA because it was too dangerous. So I assumed the same for Counter-Strike, but then a guy at school had it, and I tried it out, and I found out that, it wasn't like super violent. Like for me, it was never about shooting people. It was just a game about precision and about all these different things that Counter-Strike is. Like it's, to me, I never think of it as a shooting game, as if I'm like killing people. So for me, it was just like I tried it out, thought it was really cool. I think I asked for my parents' permission. I'm not sure, but at least went and bought the game, and then I started playing it when I was like 11 or 12 years old, I guess. But that was my first FPS because I had been avoiding them the whole time since. My parents wouldn't really allow me to play GTA, so I just assumed like any shooting game was off the.
Did they see Counter-Strike in the same way as you did, as a test of precision and skill?
Probably not, but I don't think they had that big of a problem with it. Like, I think in GTA, it's also a lot with how your character's personality is, that you kind of get this warped view of how the real world is. Whereas in Counter-Strike, you're basically just shooting people, you know? You're not, like, interacting with anyone. It's not like you're teaching yourself to drive past the red light or you know, stuff like that. It's not as real, so to say. So I think they were more willing to let me play it.
I really like that I was going to say, and you can't kill prostitutes in Counter-Strike. Yeah. And you went for, you can skip red lights. I love the way your mind works. Yeah, Counter-Strike is just more suitable for 12-year-olds because it doesn't teach you traffic, law breaking, you know, how not to drive. So, yeah, Counter-Strike is the one that we should all be giving to our children of the future.
I was exactly thinking about killing prostitutes.
So you start playing CS when you're 11 and 12 years old. So you've been playing for CS for what, just over 10 years then?
Yeah, something around that. I think my account was started like October 2008 or something like that. At the beginning I was mostly playing, you know, Surf, Scouts Knives, Zombie Escape, like all these fun mods. And yeah, like I wasn't playing it that much because I was still playing World of Warcraft in the first few years, and I played that like a lot, like constantly. I also sometimes took like month-long breaks from Counter-Strike, but I still played it because I had some friends playing it, but it was mostly like, yeah, the fun game modes, you know. So it wasn't like 5-on-5 or anything that taught me much. Maybe it taught me movement, but I also would say like, I think I'm up there with some of the best players movement-wise, like at least from the pros, the people that have played at the biggest tournaments. Not that I've played at them all, but just I've been up there in the pro scene, and comparing myself to the other professional players, I think I have pretty great movement. Yeah, there are definitely some that have better movement than me, but I think that's partly because of me playing Surf and like all these fun game modes when I was younger, instead of focusing completely on the shooting aspect, you know?
So I should be playing Flying Scotsman to improve my movement.
Yeah, definitely.
That's actually going to help me.
Yeah, I mean, it could, because, I don't know, it was a fun game mode. Like, you learn how to strafe at the beginning, right? And then after that, if you start playing Surf, like, you start understanding how to strafe slowly so that you can, like, optimize movement. And then if you play, like, KZ maps, which I play a lot now, then you learn, like, everything else. So I think movement isn't a thing that will help you that much in a 5v5 setting, but it can help you sometimes. So it's good to have, I think.
I always get backseated when I'm Twitch streaming by people who hate my movement. Like, my game sense is good, but then people are like, stop running with the gun. But I have had a couple of decent strafe moments, but I also, well, there was one when I was flashbanged on an overpass, and literally it's a clutch situation, it's match point, and I go across the A side. Have you seen this clip?
Yeah, I've seen the one. Yeah, where you while running.
Right? Like strafing sideways. And then, so I feel like the first kill was good. The second kill is me like losing my shit and really scared that it's gonna go to gonna draw. So I like run at this guy with my AK, just shooting him, even though I could have been cool and like had a knife or just one shotted him from stillness. And instead I was like, "Ay!" because I was like so nervous. So you're basically saying in 5v5, actually, you know what, holding your angles is probably best, but actually on other game modes that maybe moving a little bit more while you're firing isn't a bad thing?
Yeah, I guess kind of, but like for me the only real game mode is the 5-on-5, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're playing Flying Scoutsman or whatever it's called these days, there you could like, you know, fly, strafe around and try to no-scope people with Scout, and that was not a bad tactic. So like obviously there's differences between those kind of game modes, but yeah, in Counter-Strike mostly when I think movement, I'm more thinking like there are some hard jumps that can actually be helpful, especially if you're an AWPer, like the one on Mirage, for example, where you jump from the window over to the short. Super useful, like really easy to get a pick there versus like any type team. And there's, you know, just the bunny hopping and just in general, like movement, it can definitely help you in some situations. So I think that's more it. Like for example, stutter stepping, like counter strafing, stuff like that. I think every pro has that down. So like something like that is not something you really need to work on if you're on that level. But yeah, I did see the overpass clip, and it was pretty. I was pretty amazed. It was like at a 3 or 4 minute highlight video or something like that.
Yeah, I made a video of like things that I did, like triumphs and also a few fails as well. And so I have, because I always get a lot of criticism leveled at me by people going, she can't play Counter-Strike, so why is she covering Counter-Strike for a job? And it's like, well, because I've watched so much. It's like, but I want to play because I want, like, it's fun, and also because I want my map knowledge to improve, and I think it will help me, especially if I'm doing a desk host as well. Whereas, you know, if I'm interviewing, I'm not going to be bringing in my own insight. It's not my job to analyze what's going on. It's my job to ask players. I don't like telling players what happened. I like them to tell me what happened. So as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter that I'm not a pro level player myself. But the thing is, when I started playing, because solo queue was horrible, I used Pop Flash, so I'd have to stream to get players to join me. And now I started solo queuing to do my coin challenges for the Berlin Major. And actually, I'm not the worst player at Counter-Strike, it turns out. There are some really, really bad people. Oh my God. It's just that I have to play with them while they're saying sexual things to me or telling me to get back into the kitchen, because it happens every time I stream. And in some ways, I'm kind of grateful for that, because then people can't deny that it happens. Like, I can handle it. It's fine. I can mute people, or I'm always funnier than anyone who tells me to get back into the kitchen, because that by its very nature is not funny. Back to you, less about my exemplary Counter-Strike playing career and onto your own, because while you were starting to play Counter-Strike, the scene had been going professionally for a few years, really, but it was starting to gain a bit more momentum as you picked up the game. So when did you become aware that Counter-Strike could become a career for you?
Well, I think Counter-Strike sort of did become a career for me when I started doing YouTube, you know. So I was like going through the Danish equivalent of high school, and I started doing YouTube videos because I thought it was funny. And I didn't really get any traction at all. Like, I was doing YouTube for maybe 5 years and reached 300 subscribers. Like, it was just, you know, if I had some kind of video that I wanted to share, then I put it up, you know. And I thought 300 subscribers was really good. But then when the like Arm Steel update came with the case openings and stuff, I started doing case openings, and like to this day I still don't understand how this started my YouTube career, because I was opening one case a video. So it was like legit me talking for like 2 or 3 minutes and then opening one case. And compared to everyone else, like opening maybe 10, 20 cases at the time, like that was, I guess, a lot, because it was so new and people didn't want to invest too much money. But it just felt weird. But like, I guess people came and then stayed for the personality. So that was really cool. Then I got like 1,000 subscribers, and because I had been playing Counter-Strike for some time, I started trying to do tutorials, because I've always liked, you know, helping people, and tutorials was a good way to do exactly that. So started doing that, and people started posting them on Reddit. Like, Reddit was really instrumental at the start of my YouTube career. So people really liked it on Reddit, and then I started making more and more tutorials, and I started posting them myself on Reddit and stuff. They always got like upvoted highly, and people really seemed to like them. I also spent a lot of time on them because I had to make typically 10-minute a video, but with an entire script, and I had to make sure that I, you know, made everything perfectly and stuff. Meanwhile, I was still doing case openings. I was starting to live stream, and then I, you know, started actually wearing an afro wig. Don't know if you've seen those videos. They are definitely worth watching. And started opening like a ton of cases. So the way I did it basically was that any profit that came in from my YouTube, I invested it back into my YouTube. So at the beginning, maybe the good months, I was making, let's say, $100, and that meant that then I could spend all that money on keys and keep building the brand. So I took any profit and just put it right back into it, and that made it so that as my YouTube was growing, so was the amount of cases I would be able to open and stuff like that. because I wasn't like rich or something like that, so that I could just spend money on cases all day. And yeah, then I don't know. I just kept making a few like case opening videos. Eventually, it died down. I think like some stuff happened in my real life that kind of made me lose interest, and then yeah, I found out that I could actually play Counter-Strike as well. I remember like the first time I actually believed that I could was I was like streaming late at night or whatever, and then I don't know if you've probably seen the clip, but like when Dignitas, it must have been, played Cloud9 at the major, and Dupree like walks through a smoke and kills like 3 guys in the back on Mirage. Then I think it's Anders that says something like, "Oh my God, Dupree, are you kidding me?" or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, you've seen that one. And I've made that like a phrase I used, just when I was like, yeah, when something happened. And then all of a sudden, Dupree wrote in my chat. So apparently he was randomly watching the stream, and then I said his name, and then he was like, "What the fuck?" And then 2 minutes after, I said it again, and then he was like, "Okay, now I have to write in the chat, So then I got it confirmed that it was him, like, started following me on Twitter, posting that, "Hey, I'm watching this stream," stuff like that. This was like 2014 maybe, or 2015.
And are you streaming on Twitch at the time?
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
And then he, like we played a few matchmaking games, which meant the world to me because he was way better than me and all these things. And then after we had played for some time, he told me like, "You know what? I think you've got talent further than just being a streamer." And like I had never really thought about that. Like I'd always been very competitive in everything I do, but I hadn't come to the conclusion that maybe I could actually make more of it than just being an entertainer. And when he said that, then that was probably when I started, taking Counter-Strike more seriously. Made my first team, stuff like that. And yeah, then I don't know. Like, obviously, right now I'm teamless, but I would say in some sense he was correct. Like, I think I've never really felt super talented in Counter-Strike, but I feel like I've accomplished a lot with hard work. And yeah, I mean, with Heroic, I made it to number 12 in the world. So, like, that's a pretty big accomplishment, I think.
That's a huge accomplishment. And I definitely want to talk to you about Sprout and Heroic. But your first team, STFU Nerd.
Yep.
Who was on that team? Where did you recruit people?
Yeah, well, I met a guy who was Danish on like it was one of the operations, so it was on a map that wasn't normally in the game. It was one with like a bridge and stuff. It was kind of like Aztec, but different. I'll probably be able to find it sometime if it's important. But I met a guy called Resix there, and then we didn't speak for like half a year, and then he had played me while I was streaming in Arms Race, like gun game, and he had beat me, so I knew he was pretty good, probably better than myself even. And so I asked him if he wanted to start a team, and so we did. Then we just found some other players. Some of them I played with in the past in teams, not really teams where we were practicing, but just teams where we would like show up to matches, and brought like one of them along. I think his name was Red Rose. And then we had a guy called Elpis. Like these are players that I would say, never made it. So, and then the last guy was a guy called Erikip. And yeah, I don't know, we just started to play. Then as we progressed, we started, we made it to ESEA main, for example, where Lecro was playing in Team Deserter. And they were like contracted and everything, which was huge back in like 2015. I don't know if they even made money, but yeah, that was how it was. And then after some time, like we made some changes in that team. People needed to go to school or something like that. And all of a sudden, Resix comes to me and says that he knows this guy called Magisk Boy. And he thought he was pretty good. So we played matchmaking with him a few times. And probably because I was like young, stupid, and jealous, I didn't think he was that great. But Resix was like really keen on him. So he said like, this guy, he's the shit, like we need to get him. And I was like, I mean, he's always fragging, you know. I don't think he was like the best teammate, but obviously I wasn't either. But like, yeah, he was really making sure that we got this guy. And I wasn't saying, no, let's not take him. I was just saying, I didn't really know. So since he was so hyped about it, we decided to bring him. That was a good decision. I remember winning tournaments. We won one versus some better Danish players where we played us two. He was playing B rotation, and he was playing AWP the entire game, CT side, and he got 40 kills. I think the next one got like 22 or something on our team, and that was the grand final. We won that game like 16-14 versus Config, some other players like that were better than us. So he definitely had his moments. And then when League of Sharks came around, which was like one of the biggest tournaments that was open to the public in Scandinavia, we had a roster that was me, Rezex, Magisk, Erikip, and then because we needed a stand-in, we asked Lekro if he would play, and he did. But yeah, that was just like, we ended up playing the League of Sharks thing. Lekro was like having a performance where it was like crazy. He was just completely getting like 40 kills every match versus like one of the teams we beat 16-4. I remember I was calling in that team, like in-game leading. And we beat a team called Kappa Kappa, which was with Isetag, who now plays in Heroic, my former teammate. And then we ended up playing a mix of like some top 3, top 5 Danish players, which we beat. And then we ended up playing Reason, which had like Muddy, Baba, this guy Huitan, and Lekro got like 35 kills. Everyone thought he cheated. Then we met them again in the grand final, where we were supposed to have an advantage in the best of 3. And then we beat them again. They still thought Lekro cheated, and they were even changing their names in Steam to like go by cheat, like stuff like that. Go by cheat.dk, you know, like as if it's a website or something like that. And like they were being really, really, they were really insulting us personally and stuff like that. It was actually really bad. What ended up happening was that Lekro forgot to record a demo. This is something that's maybe not public knowledge, but Lekro forgot to record a demo. So we were actually going to be disqualified for that after we had already won the game. So the thing was, we won just the first map, and then Reason, their manager, went and said, this guy's cheating, we're not playing anymore. So they didn't even want to play the second map, which was really unprofessional in my opinion. And then he didn't have the demo, so we were actually disqualified. But then a guy called Gran, a Danish guy, was streaming and only watching Lekro's point of view because he was so sure that he was cheating. So he was like commentating and like, yeah, okay, that's pretty fucking weird that he does this, stuff like that. So then we had a stream, which was basically a point of view demo, and somehow the admins allowed it, which was like pretty incredible. So because we fucked up, the admin said the entire match had to be replayed, but we wouldn't be disqualified, something like that. Or maybe it was just that, yeah, the grand final had to be played over, played over again, played once again for some reason. And actually, then after looking at the stream, there was a situation where it looked like Lekro was really cheating. Like there was something with his aim that was off, like looked really mechanical. And then we were actually disqualified again, but I went in and studied the clips that the admin gave me, and I noticed that, which was also incredibly lucky, this guy that was streaming it had the net graph open, so you could see like the FPS and the everything, and there was like a huge spike in his internet, like the variance on the server went up by a lot. So it ended up being that, at least I assumed, that probably this variance caused the aim to look very mechanical because it was smoothing out the movement since it didn't have enough information on how the mouse was actually working. And when I presented that video to Reddit, people were on our side saying he probably wasn't cheating. And with that, we then were undisqualified again, which was pretty crazy. Like Lekro's name was cleared because everyone was pretty sure that he was cheating. And then it was that Reason were offered to rematch, and they decided to just pull out of the tournament and said, no, this is a fucking, like, this is such an unprofessional tournament. We don't want to be a part of it. And then we ended up being crowned winners anyway, which was bullshit because, like, in my opinion, they could have at least played the match. But I remember also, especially Rizix in that match was like, don't tell them that we want to replay the match because, like, we hit the day today. Like, the whole tournament was in one day, and this is like, we've never been this good, you know? If we play them tomorrow, we're gonna lose. Like, don't say that there's a possibility we will replay the match. But I was like, I mean, I am down to play the match again. I want to win, you know, in a fair way. In the end, they ended up, like, backing out and not even taking the rematch, which I guess was lucky because we might have actually lost, but yeah. That was a very long story, but this, like,
no, it's
these
really
are all
interesting.
details that I haven't really shared before, so it's fun for me to...
Yeah. No, it's really fun to hear. And I mean, the thing about Letcro from watching him do 1v1 with the Digs against Lucas won recently for this Betway video we filmed in Moscow for Blast. His crosshair placement is ridiculous, especially in comparison to Lucas. So Lucas was just going for any damage he could do. And, like, Letcro was just jiggle peeking and taking that damage because Letcro just knew he needed one headshot. He only needed to take one shot to get the kill, whereas Lucas had to take multiple shots because obviously they have a different play style. But also he's genuinely one of my favourite players to talk to both on and off camera as well. I've done karaoke for Letcro. Like, yes, I have. There is a video that Plofsky's dad put on Twitter. So there's video evidence. Yes, remember because I tagged you in it.
You tagged me in
about your dad. Again, we got to talk to
singing there.
Lecro did a little bit of singing. Yeah, I encouraged him. I coerced him into it, but he'd had a couple of gins, I think, by that point. So you go through lots of different orgs. I'm guessing some with more backing than others financially. And so I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit up until you get to Sprout, because that's where we first met. We first met in Star Series 6 in Kiev in October when you were playing for that org. So you joined them in February. So how did you manage to join them? Because I imagine you were playing for your own team, LPSP, before. So you must have got picked up. Yeah.
So before Sprout, I had been, grinding as a professional, or not really a professional because I wasn't really getting paid much. Like, the only team I was ever actually getting paid was Magistra, and the salary there, like, I think now it's so many years ago that I might as well say it, I think it was like 200 euros a month, something like that. So it was like, for me being in high school, some money, but it wasn't like enough to even pay rent or whatever. But then I was playing in LPSP. I think at the time when Sprout contacted me, I'd been playing 16 or 17 months in a row without being paid at all. So I had been like saving up all my money from my YouTube, my Twitch, everything. And my account was pretty much dry after 17 months of having to pay rent. Was living with my girlfriend at the time in a different city, like far away from my parents and stuff. So like she was going to school, getting paid to do that because you do that in Denmark. And I was just like constantly using up my funds. Then all of a sudden, I guess isn't really accurate because I had been actually playing really well for a long time. I think I had like 1.32 rating past 3 months or something crazy like that. Really playing probably some of the best individual CS of my life. I think I was a good teammate in that team as well and everything. And then I knew a guy from back in Shut the Fuck Up Nerd, actually. A guy who was just friends with. We were playing together and stuff like that. His name was Snugs. His first name is Emir. And he had always been like a manager type guy. Then he got like a job at Face It, and then he got like a job as the manager of Sprout. So after the major, he wrote me all of a sudden something like, yeah, maybe we change the player. I will try to, put your name in the basket or whatever. And I mean, that's always nice, but I didn't expect anything to come from it. Didn't know any of the players, didn't know any like coach or anything, just the manager. And all of a sudden, Sen got removed from that team. They somehow were convinced by Emir to try me out, and they did. And I know at the beginning there were like, I think Dennis did not like me that much, not as a person, but like he probably thought I was a bit too of a selfish player. And I think the rest of the guys liked me from the get-go pretty much. I know the coach, Toby, that I was really good friends with as well towards the end, and still am. He also really liked me, thought that I was pretty good at like using my grenades, playing smart, stuff like that. Yeah, and then because of my manager friend, I got a chance to try out with that team, and they ended up signing me. I still remember having played for them like 1 month. We had a game in a qualifier versus a Turkish team called Royal Bandits. They had like they didn't have Voxic, but it was like some of the same players he played with in Dark Passage. I think it was like Mini, Sasuke, some of those players. So pretty decent Turkish players, but I think none of them have really made it yet. I think this guy Mini might at some point, if he's not too old. I think he's a few years younger than me. And we played them, and I had like I set my career highest rating in that game at the time, which was like 2.2. We won 16-4, and I was just like completely dominating them. I was taking like aggressive peaks, just hitting insane shots and all that. I had a really good game, and then because I was at home with my parents at the time, I went out to them and just told them, "Hey, we won. I played like a super good match. I'm always like really excited, and I want to share it with them." And then when I came back to the PC, I could see that the coach and another guy was in another room, and that was kind of weird to me. But then when they came back to the room, they told me like, "Hey, listen, while you were going talking to your parents, we've all been discussing, and there's been no one who said no. Like everyone said that you should get that contract, and we should sign you." So I remember that match means a lot to me because it was the match. It's like the contract game. It was when I finally became a professional. Like I had one of my best matches ever statistically, and after that, I just came back and they said, we're gonna sign you, and yeah, that turned into 10 months of ups and downs, but still, it was 10 months of professional Counter-Strike where I think I improved a lot with some very experienced players on the team that taught me a lot about how to behave on TeamSpeak, because before that was not in LPSP but in some of my former teams. Probably the type of guy, I wouldn't say I was raging, but if something went wrong, I would always be commenting on it and try to better it instead of just saving it for after the match. But yeah, so that's basically my way in, was like a manager friend. So yeah, it was like really lucky, but also a testament to how important it is to network, how important it is to never burn any bridges and make sure that if you have a good friend, take care of that friendship, because maybe in the end you will end up doing something great for him, her, or it will be the other way around.
Aside from getting that contract, what was your favorite moment from your time with Sprout?
My favorite moment was I think just in general, personality-wise, they were really, really funny, nice guys. Everyone from Crystal, Innocent, the first lineup, and then Speedy Dennis, also they are really great guys. I still talk to them from time to time. I ended up bringing some Danes on board as well. There were just many good memories where we were having tons of fun, But I think if we're talking career-wise, my best memory was Copenhagen Games 2018. It was my first LAN that I played with Sprout, and no, that's not actually true. But it was the first time that I played a LAN, at least with Sprout, where I was on contract and there as more than a substitute. So I played good the entire time. I think there wasn't really a match where I didn't play good. We ended up making it to playoffs, which was the goal. We won 16-14 on the deciding map versus Red Reserve with Freddy Frog and Relax and Pleasant and those guys. And then we went to playoffs. In the first game, we were facing off versus Heroic, and we beat them in the best of 3, which at least I did not expect. But I got 1.5 rating over the 3 maps. We lost the first map, and the second map was Overpass. I was just buying scouts every round, and just like completely destroying people with the scout. I don't know what happened that tournament, but I was really good with scout for some reason. And I think the heroic game that I played there was probably, that's the one game I think was the best ever in my career. Like, I was really doing so well. We ended up winning. Unfortunately, then we lost to Kingwin, I think it was, at least the team with Taz. I think it must have been Kingwin. Pretty dominantly, like 2-0. Then we played the Decider versus Imperial, who ended up winning the event. We were leading 14-8 T-side train in the third map, and then we lost 16-14 and went out. And if we had won that game, I think they would have been out, and Heroic would have been through or something like that. So they would obviously not have won the event, but we completely threw it. And yeah, it ended poorly, but I was so happy to be at a LAN showing off what I was capable of. And I remember also at the after party, for example, Kerrigan, a guy that I've always looked a lot up to, came to me and said that I played a really good tournament. And like, I couldn't believe it. I just said to him, "You can't say that." And then he said, "What do you mean? You did play a good tournament." There I was like, "Yeah, but you can't say that. Like, it can't come from you, you know?"
So what happened at the end of last year then? Was it a decision by Sprout to go back to a fully German roster? Because I noticed you and Percy left, the two Danish players.
Yes. So part of the story that wasn't public and never has been, I guess, was that even at Star Series when I met you, we played and we lost 2 of our games, I think. And then after we had lost the first 2 games, which were really close, by the way, I had a month or maybe just half a month where I hadn't really been playing so well, I thought. And then at Star Series, I found out that there were rumors that they were asking around in the German scene to check whose contracts were running out because they wanted to replace me and Percy. And so we knew that going into the last match, from what I remember, that we probably would be out. We had like a team meeting where we were basically like talking about what we were gonna do. The thing was Syrson, which they wanted to get at the time, his contract was running out in December, and I think this was like October or something like that. So we decided, since we had the closed minor qualifier coming up and stuff, that we would stick together and play out the last remaining tournaments. And I mean, the reason, and I also asked about this just even like 1 month ago, like what the reason was that they changed me. And the reason still is that they wanted to play with 5 Germans. But I remember at the time, even at Star Series, I said to them that I was not sure whether or not I wanted to bench myself, because to me it didn't make sense. Now they were already looking to remove me, so what was the point in playing, you know? But like, instead of, I would say, fucking them up, because that's what I would have done, you know, they would have like 2 months where they had to field a stand-in for the close minor qualifier and stuff like that. I decided to stick with them and like play out my time there. I knew it was probably already over, and I think especially the close minor qualifier we played there, we played like shit, and I think everyone was actually like really playing for themselves. I felt like I was really the only guy who played for the team in that qualifier, which was sad because it was supposed to be our last tournament together. And it was just like, I don't know, it just sucked, you know. Then a few weeks later, maybe just 1 week later, we had to go to ESL Meisterschaft, so the German championship in Oldenburg. And in the car down there, I was driving there with Percy and my dad. And in the car down there, I found out that I was already removed before we were even playing the tournament. So we came down there, and then we were like talking about what was happening. And yeah, I don't know, like we all knew we were out, but we decided that we would, like, no one confirmed that we were out, but we knew it, you know, because that's how it is. So we played that tournament. We lost our first game, which we never should have. I think all 3 of the Germans actually played really bad in those matches, probably because they sort of felt guilty. That's at least my take on it. And I remember as well that we knew it was gonna be Merbit and Syrson, and Merbit was with us at the event, which was really weird because he wasn't playing from what I remember. And when I went for breakfast the day that we had to play, I could see like underneath his shirt he had a green top. So probably he had already gotten his shirt at that point, which was just like, really heartbreaking. Yeah, because I don't know, especially with Sprout, like it always felt like a family, I always felt like super welcome. There was always people to talk to. They always treated me really well. They were very happy to have me. I know they were also very sad to lose me, but that was not really their decision. It was like mainly the players and the coach's decision. And yeah, like it just sucked. Then like I ended up actually also breaking up with my ex-girlfriend right at the same time, like maybe 10 days later or something like that. So that was just like honestly a pretty rough time period.
But actually, you moved on to bigger and better things when you think about it, because you've been playing some tier 1 events.
That's true. Actually, quite a few, and the ones that I've attended, we played like we over-accomplished at every single one. So, like, to continue the story, I guess the next part was that I was teamless for 5 months or so. The first few months, just like trying to get over the breakup and I guess also the heartbreak from Sprout. Like I had twice the heartbreak, I guess. And then it was like I lost my job. Then my girlfriend, and it was like if I didn't continue with Counter-Strike, I felt like then my life was kind of over. I decided to just keep playing. Then all of a sudden, Mertz from Heroic got ill and they needed a substitute, and I played with them for like a week. Maybe it was only 3 days actually. We didn't get the best results, but it was decent and people were happy to play with me. And then I guess learned later that they were thinking about removing Mertz. So I was playing games till really late one night, maybe at 3, maybe later, I'm not even sure. And then all of a sudden, I just get a message from the Heroic owner that like, if I had time to talk. And then because I was awake, I just wrote, yeah, let's talk. Then he called me and said, I think Mertz is out. I got obviously the trial contract, and the first event we went to was ESL Pro League Stage 2, where we ended up beating Big, and then we lost to North, who topped the group, and then we ended up beating Na'Vi, who were 4th in the world at the time, and qualified for Pro League finals. So that was insane. Like the emotions I had there where we won that game. I think there's a clip somewhere out there of me and Benjamin Blimif like hugging and shouting at each other, as we always did. That was the most, like, that's the most emotions I've ever had after winning a match in Counter-Strike. Like, that was crazy. We had a really good start. I just didn't really find my game, I guess. I think what happened for me was that part of it was that my mind was probably somewhere else, but I also tried too much to be the good teammate. So I gave up some roles, some spots. I ran too much in front, even when I was playing AWP. So I was like constantly trying to figure out how I could set my teammates up instead of ever really thinking about how I could set myself up. And because of that, I ended up having like a few bad performances, I guess, or at least lackluster performances, I would say. And in the minor qualifier, I had a really bad performance. It was pretty sad because I then after such a match where I play bad, I always have this like feeling where, okay, now I really gotta get back, Then I start like putting in insane amounts of hours because nothing motivates me more than losing. And that was my plan. Like I was already in my mind like thinking, okay, how can I do this? And then as soon as I got home from Copenhagen, we were playing it from the office. They told me that they wanted someone else to play the AWP, and they obviously said it to me as if it was a choice, but since I was so new on the team, I felt like I didn't really have a choice. Like if I said no, then I would be, a bad teammate, and that's not what I wanted. So I decided to say yes. I said I would try to play rifle and stuff, and I think the part that again wasn't so public, but not really a secret either, was that at the beginning I changed roles completely with Isatek, and I was adjusting to those roles, and it wasn't really that easy for me because I haven't played rifle, but he at least had some of the roles where you were taking map control and stuff like that. But then when I played, like after we played maybe a month with that, we went to a few events. Then one day, all of a sudden, I get on TeamSpeak and BlameF said that like it didn't make sense that we had Stavn as sort of our star player, and then he was playing like some of the shit roles. So I ended up basically going from playing the AWP from the start, then going to like Isatek's positions, which were quite good, and then going to Stavn's positions, which were really shit. For example, on Nuke, I even changed roles from Patrick's roles to BlameF's role, which was I went from outside, which is a place where you like typically get a lot of frags and like at least you see a lot of people, to playing ramp. So I was playing like entry frag on T side and then playing ramp on Nuke, which was like I think pretty hard. These roles were so different from what I had at the beginning that it was really hard for me and saddened me a bit, because after Chicago I had talked to... Actually, when I was put on or put off the AWP at the beginning, I was always told that if it doesn't work out, then it's just temporary, then we just switch it back. And I was always like saying, if I go off the AWP, then it's fine, then I just want to at least have the time to, find my role. Like I want to make sure that you guys stay patient so that I get a chance to prove my worth. I mean, I got 2 months off the AWP, so I guess that was being patient, and my trial contract was coming to an end, so it was the time to remove me, I guess. But after Chicago, I talked to Benjamin and said, when we started again, I think we should have a meeting to talk about who plays AWP in the future. And I was talking to, the players as well, and I asked if I could come back as the AWP, and yeah, I could. So that was the plan. What I knew was that I was coming back after the vacation as an AWP. But yeah, then all of a sudden I wasn't, and I never came back. So I don't know. That kind of sucked. I understand why they removed me. I was a really great teammate. Like I was doing everything for the team. In the server, I was like the guy always creating good vibes when we were like in man advantage situations or in situations where it felt like we had the control. Like if we had a lot of map control or something, I would always be like, hey guys, let's calm down, because they were always really stressed. Like the most stressed team I've ever played in, actually. Obviously I hope the best for my former teammates, and I also still really like everyone that works for Heroic. They have treated me nicely. Now I'm just trying to take some time off and finding myself. I am watching my old demos from Copenhagen games and from maybe the minor qualifier. I'll need to watch some, and like I'm watching all the old matches where I played my best Counter-Strike to try and find that playstyle again. And I think lately in FPL, the last 8 games I've played, I've won 7 of them, and in some of them I've been playing like really, really good, like better than I have been in the entirety of 2019. So I think I am 100% coming back. I guess the last part of the story is that I've got a new girlfriend, actually, who I am enjoying spending time with and who I really like. So my focus is kind of on, I wouldn't say it's on her, but yeah, like that's taken up some of my time. I'm trying to keep up my level in Counter-Strike at the same time, and then when the right offer comes, then I will go back to being my normal professional self, which puts in, I've had some offers already, but I've only really had one from EU, and it wasn't something that I would be saying yes to. I've had interest from multiple North American teams, but with how everything is shaping up, I don't expect it to be happening. So I think what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to just be taking my time to figure out exactly what I want to be doing, and then I'm going to just keep putting in the work. I'm going to play a ton of FPL, and hopefully people will see that, you know, I'm back and that I can do more than just being a good teammate, that I can actually also frag, that I have an impressive skill set when I actually, I guess, allow myself to enable it.
Well, we look forward to seeing you back on the pro scene, of course. And it hasn't been long, so it's not even a comeback. It's just the next step. But I can't let you go anywhere without asking about your dad.
Yeah, of course.
So when did your dad get into Counter-Strike? Is it when you became a pro? Was it that moment when you signed that contract with Sprout?
Oh my god. Okay, let me think. Like, when I was starting to do YouTube, at the beginning, they were like, both my parents were kind of supportive, but then when I started making money, then they could actually see that there's like some sort of a career to be made in this, and not because they're greedy or only care about money or something like that, but typically it's just like that, you know, you want someone to get an education, at least that's what they wanted for me, and then when I started making money on something that I actually love doing, then they were like, okay, you can go pursue it, you know. I've always been talking about it a lot, but I think, when I started playing in Sprout, I think even when I was playing in LPSP, he was sometimes watching my matches, but when I was playing in Sprout, there they were like watching every single match, and especially when I was playing in Heroic, like there's no match that he's not watching. Like now it's just, if I'm playing a match, he's watching everything. So I think, since I went pro, that's been the difference maker, but also even back in, must have been 2017 at the Krakow Major, me and him went to that together and watched it. So like we have been watching Counter-Strike together for some time, but now it's like gotten to a point where he loves the game so much that he's watching more Counter-Strike than I am. Even when it's not me playing, he's just watching matches all the time, and he's like recommending me stuff to watch, which is so great. It's like when the major was on, for example, I missed a lot of the games, and I mean, he's still talking about this Astralis crazy match on DOS 2 where it went to like triple overtime, like, oh, this is the best Counter-Strike I think I've ever watched and stuff. Still have not watched it, but I'm gonna have to. And that's why like now he just watches so much Counter-Strike, like way more than me. He used to play football when he was younger at a like semi-decent level, but he never really watched football, you know, so it's not like he's watching sports except for Counter-Strike, which I think is also funny, because like even though he's played football for so many years, it's like Counter-Strike is the only thing he watches basically. And we just now go to every single event together. I don't know if you caught it as well. It was on Twitter, but it was his birthday 20 days ago on the 4th of September. And he got a message from Patricia from ESL. I don't know if you know her. Pat was taken is her Twitter handle. Okay, but he wrote, she wrote, of course, to my dad that the birthday present from ESL was that he had lifetime access to all ESL events and after parties. He is like still ecstatic because he's like constantly saying, yeah, I mean, but how many people have this that haven't worked for ESL? Like, it can only be a handful and stuff like that. He's so excited. And then I told Patricia, I wrote thank you, and he wrote a special message for her as well. And then he even, which wasn't public, she wrote me this in DMs, but she sent him a 100 euro voucher to the ESL shop so he could buy some merch. But it's so great. Like, he was so fucking happy. He could not believe it. So yeah, he's like so excited. But now he's gotten to a point where I said that I want to go to ESL Odense, and obviously I've been contracted to ESL actually with my YouTube and Twitch for 4 or 5 years now. And he was like, yeah, I mean, if you can't get tickets, then maybe I can get to bring you and stuff like that. He's really like acting like he's the man now. So yeah. So
this is the EPL finals. Basically,
yes, exactly.
If we want to meet your dad, we're going to have to queue at the meet and greet area now.
Yeah, exactly. He'll probably, set up his own signing session and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I know if I want to meet your dad, I just have to go to the after party dance floor.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where you'll find him. I love Nato and his dad. It's so lovely when you meet Counter-Strike families. Like Plopsky, for example, from NIP, he got to play in Malmo Arena at the age of 17 last weekend. And he went to that arena 3 years earlier when he was a lot shorter, got a photo with Alu, and got to see NIP win. I just love that about esports. It's so inspirational for young kids to be able to go to these events, look up, see their heroes, and realise that one day they could be playing them or playing alongside them. It blows my mind. It's just one of the things that makes this industry so special. Now, I haven't scheduled any future interviews for My Life in Pixels yet because I've got quite a busy October. One of the things about travelling so much is you get home and you just sometimes feel like you can't move. Basic things that should be easy, just you can't do them. I was looking at accounts yesterday and I was nearly crying at myself. And I know that people joke about finding accounts difficult, but this was some really easy stuff. And I have an accountant. I have an accounting app. This was nothing. I was freaking out about things. I was messaging my agent like about a discrepancy, and actually everything was fine. And I was worried about nothing. And I realized that I haven't had a day off for a really long time. I'm always doing something. I'm always prepping. I'm always making something, or I'm at an event, and I kind of had to be really careful. I know that I worried some people, and so sorry about that, when I was doing ESL NY New York, because we did the desk in Cologne, so we had to get onto New York time, but my flight the previous day had been super early in the morning, and I didn't sleep because I often don't sleep in new hotel rooms. So I resolved to try and sort it out with a doctor. So I had like a e-consult, which basically means you fill out a form and then they prescribe you something. So I've sorted that out. I probably would like to visit a doctor in person, but what I have done is got a temporary solution. So hopefully next time I go to an event, I will get some sleep on the first night, because it does knock me for 6. I'm going to try and stream while I can while I'm at home, but what I might have to do is maybe remove myself just for a couple of days, just to kind of be. And I'm not very good at just being. I always want to be doing. But I do appreciate everyone who got in touch when I mentioned on Instagram that I was struggling. There were so many messages. I got quite overwhelmed, to be honest. People were just the kindest, most understanding, lovely people. And when I talked about earlier in my intro about the internet and how we all need to be kinder to each other, actually when I've needed people to be, they have been. And so thank you so much for that. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm almost talking too fast, overcompensating, and I'm trying to slow myself down, but the energy goes as well. But I just want you guys to know I appreciate you listening this far, and I appreciate you sharing the podcast, because I know a lot of you have done that, and listening and sticking with me. This has been an insane year. I thought last year was going to be the most insane year of my life, but this year's been even more full on, and I wasn't expecting it to be this mad, and it's not stopping, and I'm so grateful for that. I don't want it to stop, but hopefully next year I'm going to kind of try and get my stuff in order and be more organised and look after myself. Yeah. Thank you so much to all of you for listening. I will see you at the next event, or I'll see you on my stream, twitch.tv/Frankie. I am on Twitter. I finally got verified. Hooray! At GetFrank. And of course, Instagram, GetFrankGames. Hope you all have fabulous weeks ahead of you, and I will see you on the next podcast.